Warning, this video contains spoiler alerts.
In this series, we'll be looking at every movie in the Godzilla franchise, from 1954 to 2024, and learn about the many monsters who were introduced. The Godzilla franchise comprises of 33 official Japanese movies, 5 official US adaptations, and 5 other movies for Rodan and Mothra. For those not familiar with the events and characters in the franchise, this series will help you get familiar with them. Now for the 18th movie of the franchise, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, 1991. It started in the year 2204 AD, where a submarine was searching for a monster, King Ghidorah, who had died by Godzilla's hands in the 20th century. The scientists on board were debating on restoring the creature to save the past from Godzilla's wrath. In 1992 AD, a strange ship flew over Tokyo and everyone stopped to watch this phenomenon. The news outlets called it a UFO. In the morning, Kenichiro Terasawa, a science fiction author and journalist, got a call from his editor at Super Mystery magazine, Chiaki Moriyama, and asked him to do the report on it. But Kenichiro was fed up with writing about UFOs and wanted to switch to non-fiction, despite science fiction being the reason why he was rich. He was more interested in an old man, Masakichi Ikeda, a World War II veteran, who lived in Hakata. He was at a museum, insisting that he saw a real dinosaur. He said that the dinosaur will come save them when they were in trouble, just like it did during World War II. He continued on about their false sense of peace in Japan, but the museum security took him away for causing an unnecessary disturbance. Later, Kenichiro went to meet Masakichi and learned about Lagos Island, where he saw the dinosaur. He said it saved him and his troops from the US forces who were attacking them. It was in February 1944 when his garrison was under heavy attack from all sides on the small island they were stationed on. He thought the reason why the dinosaur helped them was not to save the soldiers but to protect its own territory. He said it was very gentle at first but went completely wild later on. He laughed when he remembered how the American troops ran away when they saw the dinosaur. He said that they were later rescued and they did not report what happened because no one would have believed them. Meanwhile, at a meeting with government officials, they discussed the UFO that passed over Tokyo. They were able to record the flight path of a UFO before it disappeared over Mount Fuji, and they knew from the satellite imagery that it had to be a UFO. They then listened to what Miki Sigusa from the ESP Institute said. Miki showed them a satellite image of where Godzilla was resting after his battle with Biollante and showed that the UFO went to that exact location. They could not conclude anything since they had not identified the UFO yet, or determine if the UFO and Godzilla were linked. Meanwhile, Kenichiro went to see Professor Mizaki about the bones that a fishing boat caught in their nets a few days ago and said that it looked like the bones of a dinosaur. It was found just off the coast of New Zealand in 1977. Professor Mizaki said that he believed Masakichi's story and that dinosaurs were not really extinct as scientists claim. He was positive that it was not a Tyrannosaurus rex, but he knew it was a dinosaur. Kenichiro then went back to Super Mystery magazine to speak with Chiaki, and she thought that he was going to take a trip to Lagos Island to find the dinosaur. But that was not the case since he knew the dinosaur was not there anymore. He took out an article about the H-bomb that was tested on Lagos Island in 1954, causing the dinosaur to be hit with massive amounts of radioactivity, and thus turned it into Godzilla. Later at night, helicopters were patrolling the area and saw the UFO on Mount Fuji. But they were destroyed when they tried to get closer. The military then arrived to investigate what happened and found the UFO. In a news report, they interviewed a UFO expert to discuss the matter regarding the attack on the military helicopters. The expert said that similar incidents happened before where the helicopters approached the UFO and vanished. The news report was interrupted when Kenichiro got a phone call from Chiaki about a businessman who owned Dinosaur World and was the head of a company, Yasuaki Shindo. He was part of the garrison that was stationed on Lagos Island as a major for the Lagos garrison. Kenichiro and Chiaki went to Yasuaki to ask about the dinosaur. Yasuaki laughed when he said he never saw a real dinosaur despite being an expert in them. When Kenichiro asked him about the one on Lagos and that the H-bomb turned it into Godzilla, Yasuaki gave them photos he kept of the dinosaur. Kenichiro and Chiaki took it to Professor Mizaki and they examined the eyes, mouth, face, and hands. Mizaki then accepted that a dinosaur saved their soldiers, who later rebuilt their economy. Later, the military went to surround the UFO and got a message from the UFO asking to speak with Japan's authorities. Then something happened. The people on the UFO showed themselves as holograms: Wilson, Grenchiko, and Emi Kano. Chief of Security, Ryuzo Dobashi, and Senior Physicist, Takehiko Fujio, went to meet them. The people said that they were from the year 2204 and claimed to be sent from the Earth Union. The UFO was actually a time machine. The next day, they used teleportation to arrive at the Prime Minister's office to have a meeting about Japan's future. Grenchiko said that in their time Japan no longer existed because of nuclear pollution that will be caused by Godzilla in the near future, when he destroys all their nuclear plants, letting radiation to destroy their vegetation, spread cancer to the people, and cause mutations. This caused Japan's mainland to become uninhabitable. Some found it absurd that Godzilla would even be capable of that, but Wilson said that they had to get rid of Godzilla if they want to save Japan from their tragic future. Emi then showed them a book they brought with them. Meanwhile, Kenichiro was having lunch while working and got a call from the security agency to come to the Prime Minister's office. When he got there, he also found Professor Mizaki there and they were called into the main meeting room. Kenichiro was shocked to see that the book was the same one he was going to write in the future. Mickey was there and said that all the facts Kenichiro predicted about the H-bomb turning a dinosaur on Lagos Island into Godzilla had a 98% chance of being accurate thanks to the Futurians' analysis. Ryuzo and Takehiko said that the Futurians' plan was to go back in time to before the H-bomb was tested and bring the dinosaur back to the present to prevent it from turning into Godzilla. For the expedition, the Futurians asked for 3 people to join them: Kenichiro, Professor Makai, and Mickey. When they entered with the time machine with Ryuzo and Takehiko, they were taken inside the upper section through a gravity beam and went towards the control room. Wilson told them that Emi and an android, M11, will accompany them on the expedition. Professor Mizaki wanted to know why him, Mickey and Kenichiro were chosen for the expedition when there were people who saw the dinosaur and were alive to tell about it. Grenchiko told him that it was simple: they could not have 2 of the same person in the same timeline or else there would be complications where one of them had to disappear. Later, they boarded a separate ship to travel back in time. Kenichiro asked Emi if his book became a bestseller, but she said hardly anyone knew of his book. When they entered the ship, Mickey was startled by strange winged creatures known as Dorats, who were bioengineered and used as pets in the future. She placed them in a containment chamber for the trip, and M11 started the launch. The others watched through an observation window as the ship flew off. They warped back in time to 1944, where U.S. Navy ships were surrounding Lagos Island to search for the Japanese troops. The captain and a major on the U.S. ship watched the island as they learned that the Japanese troops were hiding in caves. They then saw a bright light rocket towards the island and wondered if it was an enemy plane. But they knew planes were not that fast and it seemed otherworldly. They decided to not report it because no one would believe that they saw a UFO and were possibly being invaded. The captain instead told the major to tell his son about it when he was born. On Lagos Island, the ship landed in February 6, 1944, the day where the dinosaur appeared to save the Japanese troops. The U.S. Navy started firing at the island, causing explosions everywhere. The explosions rocked the island and cut off communication for the troops who were sheltering underground. The ship was too advanced to be damaged by the bombs, and M11 was too quick to be hit by one. M11 ran over to the cave the troops were based in, and he transmitted everything he saw back to the ship. They saw Yasuaki Shindo's younger self giving a speech to his troops as they got ready for battle. At daylight, they started fighting the American troops who came to invade the island and were being pushed back. Everyone then stopped when they heard heavy footsteps approaching and a dinosaur appeared. The American troops started firing at him and retreated as the dinosaur kept following them. It broke the trees around him, causing it to pin some of the American troops down. They continued firing at the dinosaur and were being pushed around by the rubble. Emi took Kenichiro and Mizaki outside for a closer look while the American troops fled to the shore with the dinosaur still following them. They contacted the captain of the fleet and the ships fired at the dinosaur. The dinosaur kept roaring at them to leave even though he was badly injured from the bombs. Emi and the others were hiding nearby to watch, and the Japanese troops watched from a distance. The dinosaur was shot in his chest and collapsed. The American troops celebrated his defeat and went closer to examine him. But he got back up, stepped on them, and smacked them around with his tail. After that, he went back into the jungle, and Mickey knew for sure that he was Godzilla. Emi then took the others back to the ship so they could fast forward to the day the Lagos garrison left so they could teleport him. The U.S. major tried to get in contact with the American troops, but they were all dead. The U.S. Navy decided to leave since it was a lost cause to send any more troops to the island. On the ship, they warped to February 14, 1944, where the Japanese troops were surrounding the dinosaur. The dinosaur was badly injured, but they could not help him. They thanked him with a show of arms and left. Emi, Kenichiro, Mickey and Mizaki then came to see the dinosaur. They saw that the Japanese troops thought that the dinosaur was going to die but not resurrect as Godzilla. They thought that maybe he would have been happier to die on his island instead of being brought back as an indestructible being. Emi told them that there was no time for them to get sentimental and that they should finish their work. M11 then used the teleporter to send the dinosaur under the seabed of the Bering Sea. However, Emi released the 3 Dorats into the wild before they took off, and she did not answer when Mickey asked about their whereabouts. They then returned to the present, July 6, 1992. When they did, they learned that Godzilla was gone and King Ghidorah took his place, all according to the Futurians' plan. They went to see Takehiko, who did not know how King Ghidorah appeared when Godzilla disappeared. King Ghidorah then arrived at Fukuoka, Kyushu, an island off the coast of Japan's mainland, and started to destroy the city. Everyone evacuated while King Ghidorah destroyed the city under his wings and feet. Emi and Wilson watched from the ship while King Ghidorah attacked. Mickey then made the connection that the Dorats were exposed to the H-bomb in 1954 and were mutated into King Ghidorah, with the radioactivity making them big and savage. They then realized that the Futurians were the ones responsible for creating King Ghidorah, but they did not know why they wanted to destroy Japan. Back on the time machine, M11 and the others were controlling King Ghidorah while Wilson was surprised that the experiment with the Dorats worked. He then ordered to have King Ghidorah move north towards Hokkaido. Emi was surprised to hear of their plan to destroy most of Japan and leave Tokyo unharmed so they could show the Japanese how to properly rebuild their country. Grenchiko told her that she lost her vision all because her home country was being destroyed, but she told them that this was not their plan and that they had gone too far. King Ghidorah continued to destroy everything in his path on his way to Hokkaido. Emi then left the ship on a jetpack and Wilson was spying on her. Kenichiro returned home and listened to a voicemail he got from Chiaki about publishing his book. She even asked if he would marry her after his book became a bestseller. But he knew everything about his book's future. He thought about changing the title, but Emi appeared and told him that it would be against the rules. M11 was outside spying on them as Emi told Kenichiro the truth. She told him about the Equal Environment Earth Union, where many nations came together to form one union. She said that they stole the time machine in order to carry out their plan and that they made up the story about Godzilla destroying Japan and the nuclear pollution. She said that later on, Japan became the richest country of the 21st century and bought over countries like South America and Africa. In the 22nd century, Japan would be bigger than China, America, and all of Europe. Kenichiro then realized that the Futurians came to prevent all of that from happening, but wondered why they had to destroy Japan in this way. Emi told him that there was no other way because all nuclear weapons were banned by the end of the 20th century and that no one could control Japan without it. She said that it was Wilson's plan to create a monster he could control to destroy Japan and get rid of Godzilla so he would not defend Japan in the future. Meanwhile, King Ghidorah continued to destroy cities while the Prime Minister held a meeting about the demands they got from the Futurians. Ryuko proposed to Mizaki if they could use their nuclear weapons to turn the dinosaur into Godzilla since it was the same energy that created King Ghidorah. But they had no real nuclear force that was as powerful as the H-bomb. But Yasuaki told them that the Japanese kept a powerful nuclear submarine hidden in another country in Southeast Asia as a protective measure against potential attackers. They plan on using the nuclear missiles on the dinosaur to bring Godzilla back. But Takehiko found it outrageous for them to create another Godzilla. Yasuaki wanted to know what the government's plan was to handle the situation if he found his plan outrageous. He told him that he did not understand, and told him that Godzilla was his savior and the one who saved his garrison. Back at the ship, Mickey said that she could feel Godzilla the same way as she always did, but Kenichiro did not understand why because Godzilla was gone now. Godzilla was buried somewhere in the seabed of the Bering Sea and there was a report of a nuclear submarine that was wrecked there and never salvaged, so Godzilla still was able to mutate through radiation. Emi and Kenichiro went to tell Takehiko of their theory and Mickey came to tell them that she got news about Godzilla moving. Kenichiro and Emi then left to see Yasuaki to stop his plan of bringing back Godzilla, but they were being followed by M11. M11 drove up beside them and tore off the door of the Jeep to try to get Emi back. She kicked him away but they ran into a truck. Kenichiro drove over the tray of the truck while M11 turned over and the car burst into flames. M11 was partially burnt and he tore off his jacket. He ran after them and stood in front of them to grab onto the Jeep. He lifted the Jeep to threaten them and Emi stopped Kenichiro from fighting him since M11 was a robot. She knew he was there to take her back to the ship. In the ship, Emmy wanted to know why they did not stop her from leaving, and Grenchiko said it was to see the Japanese government's reaction to the truth. Wilson thought that the Japanese government would have thought of a good idea by now to resist them, like creating another Godzilla, since they knew they could not defeat them with their level of technology. Meanwhile, the nuclear submarine was heading towards where Godzilla was buried. Emmy then went to repair M11 and installed new discs inside of him so he would only follow orders from her. The nuclear submarine then arrived at where Godzilla was buried, but they saw him standing in front of them. Godzilla grabbed onto the nuclear submarine and destroyed the sub to absorb all of its nuclear radiation. Yasuaki and Kenichiro got a call about what happened. Kenichiro was on his way to meet Miki and Mizaki but noticed M11 outside. M11 took him to the ship and Emmy showed him the new computer they were going to give to Japan. At sea, Miki and Mizaki went to investigate what happened to the submarine via helicopter. They then saw Godzilla rise out of the sea and head toward Japan. Meanwhile, the Air Force was fighting King Ghidorah. They shot missiles at him, but the planes were destroyed. Wilson and Grenchiko watched the battle from the ship, but then they detected something on the edge of the coast. Godzilla came onto the island and Miki noticed that he had grown even bigger than he was before. The Prime Minister was shocked to see that Godzilla was bigger, but Ryuko said that it was only natural that Godzilla became bigger and more powerful because he was made with modern nuclear weapons this time. On the ship, Grenchiko and Wilson saw what the Japanese did and saw that all their efforts were wasted. Grenchiko said that creating another Godzilla was inevitable for this generation since nuclear radiation was everywhere, unlike in their time. They then sent King Ghidorah after Godzilla. Yasuaki watched the picture of the dinosaur he had and looked back at Godzilla on the monitor he was watching. He knew that Godzilla would come to be their savior in this crisis. Godzilla and King Ghidorah started to fight with the Futurians in control of King Ghidorah. King Ghidorah used his lightning to attack Godzilla and Godzilla fired his atomic breath at him. King Ghidorah used his wings as a shield, but the tips of his wings were burnt. King Ghidorah took flight and attacked Godzilla from the air. Meanwhile, Kenichiro and Emmy were busy tampering with the computer while M11 stood guard. King Ghidorah flew down and kicked Godzilla over after he shot him with his atomic breath. Godzilla tried to get up, but King Ghidorah stood on top of him to pin him down. He kept jumping on top of Godzilla. Kenichiro, Emmy, and M11 then blew up the computer and destroyed the ship. King Ghidorah then lost control and collapsed when the connection was gone. Godzilla grabbed onto his tails and kept slamming him into the ground. On the ship, M11 went to secure the smaller ship while Kenichiro and Emmy went to confront Wilson and Grenchiko. But the ship had a failsafe to take them back to the 23rd century in the event of an emergency. Grenchiko said that their plan was still a success and they did not need the computer or King Ghidorah. He said that the Godzilla they made was unfriendly and that he would destroy Japan on his own. Kenichiro and Emmy tried to fight them but were overpowered by the androids. Grenchiko took the blaster from Kenichiro and was about to kill them, but M11 came to save them. They then left. Godzilla and King Ghidorah were still fighting. There was only 10 minutes until the automatic time warp and they left on the smaller ship. With 5 minutes left, they teleported the time machine in front of Godzilla. King Ghidorah had one of his head's neck wrap around Godzilla's neck and Godzilla started foaming at the mouth. He got free by releasing a pulse of energy into King Ghidorah and blasted his atomic breath at him. When Godzilla saw the time machine appear in front of him, he destroyed it with one blast of atomic breath. King Ghidorah tried to escape while Godzilla was distracted, but Godzilla blasted a hole through his wing. King Ghidorah fell into the ocean, defeated. Mickey and Miyazaki watched Godzilla leave, and everyone knew that this was not the same Godzilla they knew. There was a 91% chance of Godzilla attacking Tokyo, and Mickey told them that Godzilla was attacking Sapporo in Hokkaido. Everyone evacuated as Godzilla was approaching, and the military moved in to intercept Godzilla. Godzilla walked through buildings and the military fired laser beams at him. He pushed the tower aside and continued moving closer as the tower collapsed against a building. The military kept trying to push him back with the lasers, but they seemed to be ineffective against him. Godzilla then misstepped into the entrance of an evacuation shelter and fell off balance. The military used the opportunity to attack Godzilla, but he destroyed them with his atomic breath. Takehiko wondered if they could use King Ghidorah to stop Godzilla by reviving him in the 23rd century and bringing him back to the 20th century. Emi said it would be a good idea as long as King Ghidorah's cells were still alive, and Miyazaki confirmed that it will since seawater was cold enough for preservation. Emi and M11 took the smaller ship back to the 23rd century, where they took a submarine and found King Ghidorah still alive. They had a representative from the Union there who did not really see the need to help a corrupt nation like Japan. But Emi begged him for their help for just this one time, and he agreed. Godzilla continued attacking the city, and Ryuko got a call from Yasuaki, who refused to leave his office despite Godzilla being nearby. Yasuaki saw that it was ironic that the dinosaur saved him and his garrison, but now that same dinosaur was destroying all the prosperity he built. Godzilla looked at Yasuaki and remembered how he abandoned him when he needed their help after sacrificing himself to help them. Yasuaki accepted his fate and let Godzilla be the one to kill him. Kenichiro and the others waited for Emi to return with King Ghidorah while they watched Godzilla continue his rampage. Then a bright light flashed in the sky, grabbing Godzilla's attention, and a mechanical King Ghidorah appeared. Godzilla did not hesitate to blast his atomic breath at it, and it circled around him. Emi and M11 piloted the mech to fight Godzilla, but Godzilla fought back with his atomic breath, which was damaging the cockpit inside. Everyone looked on at the fight as Emi buried Godzilla under the rubble of the surrounding skyscrapers. But Godzilla blasted his atomic breath at her and got back up. He attacked its wings when it got airborne and walked over to it when Emi was unconscious. M11 woke her up and she fired claws to attach around Godzilla's upper arms and legs. It sent electric currents into him and attached the last claw around Godzilla's waist. Emi then flew away with Godzilla. Godzilla tried to get free and blasted his atomic breath at the mech, causing them to crash into the ocean. But she was saved by M11 and teleported back into the ship. Emi then revealed that she was one of Kenichiro's descendants and left. But Godzilla was still out there and he will be back. This movie was one of the heavier movies in the Heisei era because it showed how Godzilla really did suffer from the moment he met humans. But did the Heisei era and the MonsterVerse era had to have so many similarities? They basically did the same thing to legendary Godzilla in the same context of him needing to get bigger in order to fight King Ghidorah. We all know the crazy size difference we saw in 2019 where Godzilla was 108 meters tall and King Ghidorah was 159 meters tall at the beginning of the movie. Then after Serizawa's sacrifice, Godzilla grew to 120 meters and unlocked thermonuclear Godzilla, with Mothra's help. However, Burning Godzilla came to fight a bigger threat than King Ghidorah, as we'll see at the end of the Heisei era. Right now, Heisei Godzilla went from 80 meters tall to 100 meters tall, and King Ghidorah is 150 meters tall. But size isn't the issue here. The main fact we have to look at is that Godzilla lost 48 years of his life in one movie. 1944's attack on Lagos Island to 1992's attack from King Ghidorah. No exposure to the H-bomb. No appearance in 1954. No imprisonment inside a volcano for 5 years. No battle with Biollante. All Godzilla had on his mind was the anger from the betrayal that he never got the chance to recover from like he did before. This Godzilla was bigger and angrier than the previous. No wonder he was one of the angriest versions of Godzilla in the franchise. But aside from the monsterverse, this movie had one thing in common with Godzilla -1, and that is the Godzillasaurus. The only difference is that -1 was much more aggressive towards the humans than Heisei was. So -1 is basically considered aggressive by nature, whereas Heisei only became aggressive after being exposed to radiation. What else will Toho and Legendary Studios use from the past? Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is about time travel where people from the distant future came with a false warning to trick the Japanese into getting rid of their protector and to be destroyed by a greater being of destruction. Of course, everything backfired in the end, as it usually did. Just like the Showa era had a rule of never trusting aliens, the Heisei era should have a rule of not trusting people from the future. But this made it clear that Toho does not want aliens to be a part of the Heisei era, because the Showa era had 8 of its 14 movies based on the concept of aliens wanting to take over the world. And fans definitely had enough of aliens for a while in the Godzilla franchise. But the time travel concept was a bit strange, because how did people in the present remember who Godzilla was when he was buried under the seabed during his debut and return? Even the incident with the oxygen destroyer would not have happened, and Destoroyah would not even exist. So why was Godzilla the only one affected but no one else? Time travel was a concept no one explained well, even in fiction where it's supposed to make sense. But aside from all of that, it was still a great movie to watch, since this was the first time the series actually went into the actual origin of Godzilla. This aspect of the story reintroduces us to King Ghidorah, and introduces us to the Dorats, Mecha King Ghidorah, and the Godzillasaurus. In the next movie, we'll be reintroduced to Mothra, and introduced to her darker twin, Batra. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. Until next time.